Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 26 series, Rescue the Rockies. And we are at the midway point of the season. Our Rockies doing very well again this year at 52 and 28. Hopefully well positioned for another long playoff run. It's going to be a relatively short episode. We're going to be simming just barely a week ahead at this point to the first year player draft. And then we will take a look at the players who are available for us and on the board before hopefully opening up things to the worldwide scouting department to help us make some decisions on what to do in the first round and hopefully beyond in the draft this year. We split a 4-game series with Milwaukee recently. We've got 3 left on this homestand against San Francisco and then 3 against the Cubs before an off day. And then we will be on the road in Texas when the draft finally does take place in a little over a week. We will be giving the young pitcher Evan Kluver, who we drafted in the first round, 30th overall a year ago, at least one more start in the majors. We did just begin a rehab assignment with David Guadron today, who was our first round pick the year before in 2035. But Guadron has been out since May 20th, so figure it probably makes sense to give him one start to build up a little more stamina with a pitch count on him and hopefully shake off a little rust before bringing him back. Presumably, Kluver will be headed down to the minors. He is a first-round pick that really has not worked out very well for us, taking a look at his scouting report. When we picked him less than a year ago, we thought he had 70 potential. And at this point, we think he's at best a usable major league pitcher. So definitely we're off in terms of our predictions on what Packy Kluver would become. Hopefully he can still be a useful arm for us for a few years. Would love if he really ended up as a starter, even if it's just a 5th starter for us, but certainly seems questionable whether he'll even be that at this point, particularly with some of the other good young pitchers we have coming up in our organization alongside him. And we ended up sweeping our 3-game series against the division rival Giants. So some good news there. Some other good news. Last time around, we did our mid-season roster review, as we do every year, as we get to the midway point of the season and start preparing for the trade deadline. Mentioned that Ted Miller, at this point, veteran outfielder who could be a free agent after this year, that we kept on the roster instead of trading away this past off season, was not having for him a great year. He did just, however, deliver a really big week. National League Player of the Week, went 12 for 27, 3 homers, 9 ribbies, and 7 runs scored. Definitely still a down year for Miller at this point, with just a 109 WRC plus and a 0.5 WAR more than midway through the season. But good to see him being a bit more productive for us. And Evan Kluver must have overheard us talking about our general level of disappointment with him, because in his second major league start yesterday, he was very effective. 4 hits, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts over 6 2/3 innings. Didn't allow a run and lowered his ERA all the way to 3.27 after that rough first start. So Guadron, in his first start in AAA, gave up a couple of runs over just 2 1/3 innings. So maybe we give Kluver one more start over the next week or so before bringing Guadron back up when we think he's fully ready to go. And who knows, maybe if Kluver pitches well in another start, somebody else ends up getting sent down to AAA. And as we prepare for the draft, things have been going really well for the Rockies. Won all 7 games since this episode got underway, pushing our winning streak to 8 in a row. So as we sit here on July 11th, 12-game lead on the Dodgers, and we are well ahead of Milwaukee at this point by 7 games for the best record in the National League. Our old friends, the Chicago White Sox, are still lurking 3.5 games behind us for the best record in baseball. So who knows? Maybe we will end up facing them in the World Series for a 5th straight year. Hard to imagine that scenario for the Rockies and the White Sox here in 2037 as we get ready for the 2025 World Series to get underway between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays, a couple of very high payroll teams. So my expectation is that all of the big prospects and really high-end players will be off the market by the time we are ready to make our pick 31st overall at the end of the first round. We'll be picking at the end of every round going forward, and no supplemental picks this year for our Colorado Rockies. And at least according to our scout, which again, given that he pushed us in the direction of Evan Kluver a year ago, maybe we should look at some of the recommendations that he gives us with a little more of a jaundiced eye. But at least according to our scout, there's some high-end players still available. Center fielder David Rogers has a demand that's well above slot. Fortunately, we can definitely afford that this year. Does have high adaptability and work ethic, really more of a corner outfielder than a center fielder. Outstanding potential contact hitter with a great potential eye. The gap power, the home run power, and the speed are all more in the mid range. Don't love that he's fragile physically already at only 18 years old, but still certainly for a 31st pick in the draft is an interesting prospect. Another high schooler, starting pitcher Alex Morales, left-hander, 17 years old. Normal in terms of his injury proneness, like the ground ball tendencies, good stamina, already exceptional at holding on runners, has the potential for a 4-pitch arsenal, like that his slider and changeup are really well developed for a 17-year-old. Still has some work to do on both a cutter and a circle change. I think that his stuff and his movement could both be outstanding. The control likely the potential issue for Morales, but certainly see him as an interesting prospect if we decide we want to go after a high school starting pitcher. 2 others that our scout really likes: catcher J.D. May, decent at blocking, but pretty poor at framing and with his arm. Like the high leadership and work ethic. Don't love the fact that he is going to be a strikeout machine, but does have potentially exceptional home run power to go with a good eye, good gap power, not great in terms of his speed, and very old for a high school prospect at almost 19 years old at this point. And Ben Richter, another guy that our scout likes, another guy with some good personality traits, high adaptability and work ethic. Not that great defensively, pretty average in terms of his speed and his base running ability. Good contact hitter, good gap power, potentially good eye. Another older guy who's almost 19 years old. The home run power is probably his major concern. Take a look at the highest rated players, at least as far as the mock draft. David Rogers, who we've already talked about, was supposed to go 11th overall. Gene Walraven, 21-year-old out of Niagara University. Don't know that profile really excites me. OSA is a little more optimistic on him than our head scout is, but first baseman who's not that great defensively, albeit with that 6'5" height, that will certainly give him some good reach. Decent contact hitting prospect, but I think the gap power and the home run power both a little below average, and the eye average at best. Not a lot of speed, only an average competition level at Niagara, so Be surprised if Walraven ends up being a guy we pursue actively. Another young catcher, Andres Garcia, 19-year-old, like his defense, pretty interesting contact hitter. The gap power, the home run power, both not great, and the eye looks borderline awful. Also, very old, is a International Baseball Academy prospect. He'll be 20 years old before the end of this year. And two other guys expected to go in the first round still on the board. So it's been a lot of chalk coming off so far. Starting pitcher Matt Mapes, 18-year-old, potential three-pitch arsenal, fragile physically. Looks like he could be a little above average in terms of his stuff, movement, and control if he reaches his full potential. Like the high adaptability and work ethic. Don't love the low baseball IQ. Don't love the fragility, although the demand is reasonable. Certainly think I prefer Morales to Mapes on first glance. And then the last guy who was already expected to be off the board, starting pitcher Javan Skull Boateng. Actually a relatively similar profile to the guy we just looked at, Mapes, in terms of a three-pitch arsenal. Think that he's going to be pretty average-ish in the ratings if he reaches his full potential. Righty, who's looking for a little more money, does have outstanding stamina, and he is normal in terms of his injury proneness. So after highlighting some of the guys that our scout is most high upon, as well as some of the guys that the mock drafters were most excited about, we'll take a somewhat broader look at some of the pitchers who are available right now. Along with Morales, who we've already talked about, the only other 80 potential player is a high school reliever, Matt Klein. Already has a major league quality fastball, which we think he can get up to 100 miles an hour. Not great stamina, not great at holding on runners, certainly looking like a reliever profile. Can't see us taking him in the first round, but if he lingers on the market a little bit, could be interesting for us. Ben Kelly, another reliever, potentially outstanding stuff and movement, and for a 18-year-old to have 40 stuff and 45 movement is very solid. Really good fastball, really good slider. Another guy who, based on his stamina, is really most likely a reliever. I think he can get into the high 90s, has some positive personality traits, committed to TCU, so go into a pretty good baseball program. Don't think he's a first rounder, but if he lingers on the market, could be someone interesting to consider. And then a couple of college pitchers also have pretty high ceilings, according to our scout. Granted, as we were just talking about, looking at college pitcher with a high ceiling a year ago, in the case of Kluver, has not worked out well for us, but doesn't mean that can't go back to the well. Mark Canfield, the starting pitcher, and he is pretty interesting. I'm not going to lie. Looking for $3 million, lefty out of Western Kentucky, so only a good competition level rather than a great competition level. Like the high work ethic, though, ground ball tendencies, ground ball or pitcher type, can get to the mid to high 90s on his fastball. Potentially outstanding stamina, exceptional at holding on runners. His movement's already good, solid major league quality, stuff not far off. The control is the potential concern. We hope he can get to average there. I think he's got a potential four-pitch arsenal. His ultimate success as far as developing that stuff to a high level is going to likely require not just adding in that fourth pitch as a changeup, but that changeup becoming one of his most effective pitches, which we think is possible, but certainly a fair amount of work for Bow Wow Canfield to get there. The other 70 potential player is a reliever, Zach Day, the Vanilla Missile, 21-year-old out of LSU. He's a pretty impressive-looking prospect, too. Definitely think that his stuff and his movement can be well above average. Control could be above average as well. Fastball is exceptional. Does have that sidearm arm slot going. really good at holding on runners. Think that he could be an interesting guy to consider. Don't know that I would go for the vanilla missile with my first pick, though. And there's also more than a handful of pitchers with 65 potential, most of whom are at least optically starting pitching prospects. So we'll take a look at all of them, starting with Steve Guillory, impossible to sign, committed to Lander University. Really interesting profile if he reaches his full potential. Going to be dependent on developing that changeup, likely to get to a fourth pitch. Solid stamina, more than solid stamina, honestly. Respectable at holding on runners. Good personality with high leadership, adaptability, and baseball IQ. The left-hander is certainly interesting. Has the nickname Top Dog. Actually think I knew a guy named Steve Guillory like 25 years ago. Can't really remember what the context was, but wherever Steve is these days, I hope he's doing well. Like the durability of Guillory here. And someone interesting to think about, although certainly that impossibility of signing him makes it perhaps a bit of a reach to take him here in the first round, unless we absolutely think he's the best guy. Another starting pitching prospect, Matt Mapes. We already talked about him. He was one of the guys that is expected to already be off the board. Another starting pitching high school prospect, Roberto Martinez, another guy who, if he reaches his full potential, could have stuff, movement, and control all above average. Potential for a 5-pitch arsenal if things go well. The stamina and the holding on runners not great, but still could certainly be a 5+ inning type starter. He is, however, another guy who we think is going to be impossible to sign. Mike McNatt. He's a guy whose movement and control we both think could be outstanding. Extreme ground ball tendencies, like the high work ethic. The question with him is just how good the arsenal is going to be. Don't think his stuff is ever going to be all that impressive. Also looking to definitely get paid at $3.4 million. His nickname, Little All Right. Definitely an interesting nickname for a 6'6" guy. Chris Priest, another high school starting pitching prospect, potential 6-pitch arsenal. Even if that changeup doesn't develop, I think that he's got a 5-pitch arsenal, and all of those pitches are 30, 35, or in the case of his fastball, 45 already. So the stuff is pretty strong for an 18-year-old. Still has some work to do on the movement and control. Solid stamina, respectable at holding on runners. Think he can get up to triple digits on the radar gun eventually. Low baseball IQ, but does have high leadership and adaptability. The one reliever in this crew, so I'm guessing we won't go this way, is closer Kyle Snavely. He's a reliever simply because he's only got 2 pitches right now. Does have enough stamina to potentially become a starter down the line if he could add a 3rd pitch. He's got a lot of work to do with that curveball, though. Has some negative personality traits. Hard for me to imagine that he's ultimately going to be the direction we go in the first round. And then I know some of you that like the college prospects have probably been wondering about Jaden Walker, who's already 40 in terms of his overall ratings. Walker, don't love the low adaptability and baseball IQ. Solid stamina, though, good at holding on runners. Already has a major league fastball that we think could get up to 100 miles an hour. Slider, change, and sinker not far off major league quality. Only an average competition level at Iona College in New Rock, New York. Stuff, movement, both we think best case scenario is the average range. Control we think could be well above average, and like the nickname Lunatic. And we'll turn our attention now to a slightly more fulsome look at the hitting class. We've already talked about David Rogers, the young center fielder that our scout really likes. J.D. May, the catcher, another player that we've already talked about. Certainly an interesting hitting prospect, but between the average to well below average defensive traits, and his struggle to make contact with the ball, as well as his somewhat older age, probably not going to end up on my short list. Center fielder Ben Richter, 18-year-old, another guy who really looks more like a corner outfielder. Good contact, good gap power, decent eye. I think we may have already talked about him. Center fielder Ryan Barber, another high school player. Another guy who literally looks like a corner outfielder. Decent speed, like the durability. Looks okay in terms of the contact, and we think the gap power and the eye could both be exceptional, with decent home run pop for the right-handed hitter, also known as Circus Solly. Catcher Andres Garcia, we talked about him already as well. Like the defense for him, although he is a bit older as a prospect. Shortstop David Hood, definitely a more advanced prospect, the first college player we're going to talk about out of USC, so he's faced a great competition level there in Southern California. Can't say that I hate him. He's kind of interesting. Can definitely play multiple positions in the infield, not going to be a gold glover anywhere, but certainly looks like he could be a pretty respectable third baseman. Like some of the personality traits with the high loyalty, adaptability, and baseball IQ, the low financial ambition. I think he can be slightly above average at everything offensively. Not going to be a superstar, but certainly looks like a interesting prospect. Don't love that his speed isn't that great, but he is a pretty well-advanced prospect. Wouldn't be the least interesting thing in the world if we were to draft him out of USC and ultimately have him in the infield next to the UCLA product, Derby Mahez, who was a college player we drafted several years back. Another shortstop, this one a high schooler, Michael McCottrell, also known as Widow. He's pretty interesting. Widow is a guy with blazing speed, really nice contact, eye, and gap power potential. Honestly, exceptional gap power potential. Not a ton of home run power. Looks like a decent infielder. Does remind me a little bit, for those of you who have been following us over the years, of Deshaun Seifu, although I don't think that Widow McCottrell will ultimately reach those heights. The last 70 prospect out there is a right fielder, Dan Smith. Not a profile that I'm in love with the below average contact, tons of strikeouts coming his way, not the greatest personality in the world, not great defensively, but certainly the fact that he has durability plus potentially outstanding home run power, gap power, and eye are attractive features. The lefty is looking for $7.5 million, so he may be, other than the impossible to sign guys, the most expensive prospect still on the board here at pick number 31. And there's also 6 guys on the board with 65 ceilings, so we'll take a look at all 6 of them right now quickly. Center fielder Rob Blegan, fine prospect. Like the durability, looks like a corner outfielder. Do like the high work ethic. Looks like a pretty solid bat, gap power being his potentially most interesting trait. 19 years old, certainly a lot of work to do. Not a horrible prospect, but probably not a guy that I'm going to take with the first pick. If he were around still in the second or third round, he could get pretty interesting. First baseman David Hicks, another guy with a pretty interesting bat, like the speed. Looking for $3.4 million. I mean, not that the speed is exceptional, but he's got above average speed slightly and decent base running instincts. Doesn't bring much to the table at all defensively. Really looks like a pure DH, although could certainly play him at first base if we had to. Another outfielder, left fielder, Kyle Montgomery, high financial ambition, low loyalty, not a lot of speed, not a lot defensively. potentially outstanding contact, but potentially below average to well below average everywhere else. Not a guy I'm going to likely go after. Right fielder Marty Morales, 21-year-old out of Biola University, La Miranda, California. Boy, he does some weird things when he gets his glove on the ball with that 35 error rating, but not a bad-looking potential bat. Tend to think that if we're going to go for a college position player in the first round, it's likely to be that shortstop David Hood. But Morales, if he drops in the draft, could be interesting. Center fielder Brad Sawyer. Decent-looking speed, decent-looking defense. Contact and gap power could both be exceptional. The home run power and the eye look like they're going to be pretty sorry. So a pretty barbelled prospect in terms of some of his traits. And last but not least, infielder, shortstop Gilberto Tavera. Like the high adaptability, work ethic, and baseball IQ. Not a great fielder, but a guy who could certainly play anywhere in the infield. Gap power to go with above average speed is an attractive combination. Everything else we think he could get to be average or slightly above in, but certainly is an 18-year-old. Long way for him to go to reach that full potential. So I have at least preliminarily whittled my list to 9 position players and 9 pitchers that I am most interested in. So we'll talk about them and where they're all expected to go in the draft before we finish the episode. So I can start thinking about a strategy, and hopefully some of you can start sharing your thoughts on the top prospects and helping me with a strategy as well. Just a reminder, we've got the 31st pick, which is the one we're on the clock with right now here in the first round, picking 34th in the second round and 30th in the third round. Taking a look at those position players, and this one surprised me a bit. We'll go from the guys who we have the most time, potentially based on their mock draft spots, to think about taking, versus the guys who are almost certainly going to be gone the next time that we are on the clock. And of the 9 position players that I'm most interested in, for at least considering with the first round pick, David Hood is not expected to go until the 25th pick of the third round. So that's telling us we could almost certainly get him with our second round pick, and there's some chance he would fall to us with the 30th overall pick in the third round. Looks like the OSA is definitely much lower on him than our scout is. Tend to think that I would trust my scout over the OSA. But if that's the case, we might be able to wait on Hood. He was certainly on my short list of guys to consider in the first round here. Still could very well end up being our selection, but the fact that he lasts until almost the end of the third round in the mock draft is interesting. One other position player also lasts till the third round, and that's the high school center fielder Ben Richter. Pretty decently balanced hitting profile, decent speed, decent personality with the high adaptability and work ethic, not great defensively. Richter goes with the 14th pick in the third round in the mock draft, so he could be a player to potentially wait on as well. The final guy who went in the third round, another high schooler, shortstop Gilberto Tavera. Like the personalities we talked about with him, a guy who should be able to play a number of positions, a bat that could be interesting if it completely develops. So a couple of shortstops that we like in Hood and Tavera, as well as the high school outfielder Ben Richter, all projected to go in the third round, which tells us maybe we've got a little bit of time to wait on them. Start getting now into the guys that the mock draft is telling us we have to take now if we want to bring them on board. We'll start with the first baseman, David Hicks. He's expected to go with the 32nd pick of the second round, but as I mentioned, we've got the 34th pick. If you go with Hicks, you really got to like his bat because he doesn't deliver a lot of value in terms of his fielding skills, but decent speed, especially for a guy who's most likely going to end up as a DH, and some positive personality traits for Hicks as well. Another high school outfielder, Ryan Barber, expected to go with the 15th pick in the second round. So if we want Circus Sally, now is likely the time to pick him. One of the more interesting hitting prospects with that potentially great eye, great gap power, well above average home run power, and the durability combination that Barber brings to the table. Final guy who's expected to go in the second round is the shortstop Michael McCottrell. He's expected to go with the first pick in the second round, so just a few picks from now since there are 2 supplemental picks in this draft. Witto is a guy who's expected to be off the board relatively soon. Some interesting infield prospects in this draft. Don't see anyone that's a perennial gold glover among them. But some interesting hitters, and McCottrell with that combination of world-class gap power and borderline world-class speed could be a interesting player to consider. And there's also 3 guys that are expected to go in the first round that we haven't talked about yet. One is the center fielder, Rob Blegan, the 19-year-old, is expected to go with the second supplemental first-round pick, so just 2 picks from now. Like the durability, solid-looking defensive outfielder, and a bat that if he reaches his full potential could certainly be well above average. The other 2 guys we're going to talk about are guys who are already expected to be off the board. The catcher, Andres Garcia. We like his defense and his contact. Everything else about him is kind of meh, but he was expected to be the 22nd overall pick, so very unlikely he'll still be around from now. And then, of course, David Rogers is the guy who was expected to go 11th overall. Fragile physically, looking for a lot of money. Certainly a very interesting contact/eye combination if he reaches his full potential. Would certainly feel a little better about him if he were better defensively, or if he had more speed, if he wasn't dealing with that extreme development risk, wasn't fragile already, and didn't have a high bonus demand. If you haven't picked up from that, even though he was expected to be 11th overall, probably a relatively high hurdle to convince me that Rogers is the way to go with our first round pick. J.D. May, you probably mentioned or noticed that I didn't have him on my short list. The lack of contact and the massive number of strikeouts that I think he's going to have, along with defense that really makes him a DH under almost any circumstance. I could see perhaps considering him in the second or third round, but he's not somebody that I'm seriously considering here in the first round with the other players that are on the board. So there are definitely some interesting options to consider among the position players we just talked about. The pitchers, though, I mentioned that there's 9 that I've kind of honed in on as well, and as we've found in the last couple versions of the game, certainly in this version particularly, the mock draft seems to be far underestimating when pitchers are going to actually be taken off the board. So I would take all of these mock draft positions with a grain of salt. My hunches with most of these guys, we probably need to be at least 1 round, if not 2 rounds earlier than they're expected to come off the board to ensure that we get them. Obviously, the only real way to ensure we get any of these guys, though, is to pick them right now. Two players not projected to go in the first 5 rounds, not surprisingly, both relievers. The 18-year-old Ben Kelly is a pretty intriguing relief prospect. If he's really sitting on the board in the 4th or 5th round, which the mock tells us he may be, or he's likely to be, then Junie Kelly could be a way to go. Zach Day, the 21-year-old reliever out of LSU, also not projected to go in the first 5 rounds. So he's another guy who, if he's sitting around in the 4th or 5th round, could be real interesting to us. The OSA is really high on him. Makes me think that maybe I've missed something with him. Kelly, the OSA is lower on, so that makes a little sense. But before I continue, I'm just going to make sure that I didn't miss those guys, because there's really no way I know of other than kind of manually going through the mock draft and looking for the different names. So it's certainly possible that I missed them. Just want to make sure I'm accurate in what I'm saying before we move on to the other 7 pitchers. No, unless my eyes are even worse than I believe they are, and I missed them another time looking through all 5 rounds of the draft. Both Day and Kelly not projected to go in the first 5 rounds, so seems like we could potentially wait on both of them and potentially be rewarded. As I said, 4th, 5th, maybe even the 6th or 7th round for one of them. Seems like the relievers are not well regarded in this draft, because Matt Klein, the 18-year-old closer prospect out of Clint, Texas, is not projected to go until the 28th pick in the 5th round. So some pretty interesting looking relief prospects that maybe could be on the board for us as we head towards the 4th and 5th rounds. The other 6 players on our short list are all at least listed as starting pitchers, so not surprisingly, some of them will be going earlier. The high school pitcher, Roberto Martinez, expected to go with the 27th pick in the 4th round. A guy with a 5-pitch arsenal, decent stamina. He is impossible to sign, so that's certainly going to encourage us and perhaps others to wait on him. We do have a lot of money in the budget this year, so we could potentially make a run at some of those impossible to sign guys as the draft moves forward, but seems like we'll have plenty of time to think about Mr. Martinez. Similarly, we can say the same thing about the impossible to sign Steve Guillory. He's expected to go with the 26th pick in the 3rd round, so seems like we could potentially wait on him a little bit. Another guy who's impossible to sign, probably not where we're going to go with our 1st round pick. Oh, and actually I forgot, skipped over another 4th round guy who is kind of one of the more interesting prospects. The college pitcher Jaden Walker, lunatic out of Iona, expected to go with the 9th pick in the 4th round. So another guy that we think we could certainly wait on a bit if we decided that he was the direction we wanted to go. 3 pitchers, or actually 4 pitchers left that 3 since we've talked about Guillory. The other guy who's expected to go with the 3rd round starting pitcher, the college player Mark Bow Wow Canfield out of Western Kentucky. He's expected to go with the 28th pick in the 3rd round. So telling us that we could definitely get him with our 2nd round pick, and if we want to roll the dice, we could wait till the 3rd round and our 30th pick in that round to try to get him. As I said, my hunch is most of these guys come off the board earlier than the mock draft is estimating. But Bow Wow Canfield, 3rd round, 28th pick overall, says that we could wait on him a bit. The final 2 pitchers we're going to talk about, the mock draft is telling us we need to take them right now. One is the starting pitcher, Chris Priest, who's expected to go with the 7th pick in the 2nd round. He's got that potential 6-pitch arsenal. I think his stuff could be pretty filthy to go with plus movement and plus control. And then, of course, Alex Morales, the highest ranked pitcher left, at least in terms of where he's going to go in the mock draft of the guys that we're interested in. The 17-year-old expected to go with the second pick of the second round, so just a few picks from now. Definitely will need to strike now to bring him on board. Has a lot of work to do as a 17-year-old to build out his arsenal and also improve his control, but certainly think that those ground ball tendencies, the really good stamina, outstanding ability to hold on runners, and great ability to keep the ball down and in the ballpark could serve him well down the line. So definitely a lot of interesting things to think about. Appreciate, as always, those of you who spend some time with this episode and thinking about things and sharing your thoughts about which direction we may want to go. Definitely not a draft where I think there's an obvious, to me, decision for the first overall pick. As I talked about, the shortstop David Hood, without a mock draft, might be the direction that I ended up. But seeing him go in last in the mock draft till the 25th pick in the third round might encourage me to perhaps explore some other avenues ultimately with our first round pick. So we'll see where we end up in the next episode. Before we finish, we'll take a look at just a couple of the top names. Michael Ocampo, first baseman, was expected to go number 1 overall to the Dodgers. As you can see, he actually ended up going second overall to the Phillies. 21-year-old out of Cal State Northridge. Looks like he's pretty ready to step right into a major league lineup today. Love the nickname, The Great. He's definitely more of a bat than anything else, but durability, 80 home run potential, 80 eye potential, and a guy who's already pretty far along in his development is going to be a pretty popular selection. A little surprised, or actually quite surprised, that the Dodgers did not go with the guy who's essentially a homegrown guy, having gone to Cal State Northridge, and not sure where Rosamond, California is, whether it's in Southern California or not. But the Dodgers decided to go with their first pick overall with Jimmy Catapano, who was supposed to go third overall to the Yankees, the shortstop out of Irwin, New York. Pretty interesting looking prospect. Love the personality with the high leadership, loyalty, work ethic, and baseball IQ. Outstanding range in the infield. Still has some work to do with the other defensive ratings. Not a ton of speed, but like the durability. And another guy with potentially outstanding eye, home run power, and gap power to go with decent contact. Can certainly see why Cha-Cha Catapano and Michael Ocampo were a couple of popular picks and the first two to go off the board here. And with that, we will call it an episode. Between now and the next time, we will be spending a lot of time perusing the draft and hopefully making a good decision in what we want to do. And hopefully we'll have a good amount of input from the Worldwide Scouting Department to help guide us in that decision making next time around. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.